Chapter 13. What happened next was extremely cool. A holographic image of a second librarian appeared behind Dr. Sinchenko at the center desk. She looked a little like Princess Leia being beamed out of R2-D2 in Star Wars, except she had an old-fashioned bubble-top hairdo, cat's eyes glasses, and tweed jacket with patches on the elbows. "Here to present our official library lock-in rules," said Dr. Sinchenko, "is Mrs. Gail Tobin, head librarian of the Alexandriaville Public Library back in the 1960s when Mr. Lemoncello was your age." Overhead, the Wonder Dome had shifted back its 10 Dewey Decimal displays. "How old is she?" said Sean Keegan. "She'd be 110 if she were still alive, but she's dead and working here. Let's just say her spirit lives on in this hologram." "Mrs. Tobin, the one who helped Mr. Lemoncello so much," Kyle whispered to Akimi. "When he was a kid?" "I know. Her hair looks like a beehive." Kyle shrugged. "From what I've seen on TV, the 1960s were generally weird." "Welcome, children, to the Library of the Future," said the flickering projection. "Dr. Zinchenko will now pass out Lemoncello Library floor plans, your map and guide to all that this extraordinary building has to offer. Your new library cards will grant you access to all of the rooms except the Master Control Center, the red door you passed on your way in, and of course, Mr. Lemoncello's private suite on the 3rd floor. Charles Chiltington dangled his golden key in front of his face. "I believe you need this to enter that." Mrs. Tobin ignored him. She was a hologram. That made it easier. "Security personnel are on duty 24 hours a day," she continued. "During your stay, all of your actions will be recorded by video cameras as outlined in the consent agreements you and your parents signed earlier." "Are we going to be on reality TV?" asked Haley, smiling up at a tiny camera with a blinking red light. "It is a distinct possibility," said Dr. Zinchenko. "I like television," said the ghostly image of Miss Tobin. "Rowan and Martin's Laugh-Ins is my favorite program. Returning to the rules, the use of personal electronic devices is strictly prohibited at all times during the lock-in. The security guard, Clarence, and a guy who looked like his identical twin brother entered the rotunda, each of them carrying an aluminum attaché case. Kindly deposit all cell phones, iPods in the receptacle provided by our security guards, Clarence and Clement. Your devices will be safely stored for the duration of your stay and will be returned to you at the conclusion of our activities. Also, you may use the desktop pad computers in this room to comb through our card catalog and conduct internet research. However, these devices cannot send or receive email or text messages, whatever those might be. Remember, I retired in 1973. We still used carbon paper. And now Dr. Zinchenko will walk you through our floor plan." Everybody unfolded their map pamphlets. "As you can see," said Dr. Zinchenko, "fiction titles are located here in the reading room. The children's enrichment room with soundproof walls is over there. 2 fully equipped community meeting rooms, as well as the Book Nook Cafe behind those windows where the curtains are drawn, are also located on this floor. Upstairs, on 2, you will find 10 numbered doors, each leading into a chamber filled with books, information, as well as displays related to its corresponding Dewey Decimal category." Kyle raised his hand. "Yes? Where's the Electronic Learning Center?" Dr. Zinchenko grinned. "Upstairs on the 3rd floor, where you will also find the boardroom, the art and artifacts room, the IMAX theater, and the Lemoncello Abilia room. Can we go upstairs and play?" asked Bridget Wadge. "I want to try out the space shuttle simulator." "I want to learn how to drive a car," said Sean Keegan. "A race car." "I want to conquer the world with Alexander the Great," said Yasmin Smith-Snyder. Apparently, everyone was doing what Kyle had already done, checking out the available educational gameware listed on the back of the floor plan. Early access to the Electronic Learning Center will be tonight's second prize, said Dr. Zinchenko. To win it, you must use the library's resources to find dessert, which we have hidden somewhere in the building. Whoever does the research and locates the goodies first will also be the first one allowed in the Electronic Learning Center. So use your wits, use your library, and go find dessert. Everybody raced around the room and sat down at separate desks to start tapping on the glass computer pads. Well, everybody except Sierra Russell. She spent like 2 seconds swiping her fingers across the screen, wrote something down with a stubby pencil on a slip of paper, then wandered off to inspect the 3-story, tall, curved bookcases lining the walls at the back half of the rotunda. Kyle watched as she stepped onto a slightly elevated platform with handles like you'd see on your grandmother's walker. It even had a basket attached to the front. Mr. Zinchenko. Yes, Miss Russell. Is this safe? Because the book I want is all the way at the top. Yes. Just make sure your feet are securely locked in. Sierra wiggled her leg. Kyle heard a metal snap. It's like a ski boot, said Sierra. That's right. Now use the keypad to tell the hover ladder the call number for the book you are interested in and hang on tight. Sierra consulted the slip of paper, tapped some keys. The bottom of the platform you are standing on is a magnet, said Dr. Zinchenko. There are ribbons of electromagnetic material lining the bookcases. The strength of those magnets will be modulated by our maglev computer based on the call system you input. 2 seconds later, Sierra Russell was floating in the air, drifting up and to the left. It was absolutely awesome. The hover ladder must use advanced magnetic levitation technology, said Miguel, seated at the desk to Kyle's right. Just look at the maglev bullet trains in Japan. Cool, mumbled Kyle. And for the first time in his life, Kyle Keeley wanted to check out a library book more than anything in the world. Chapter 14. How about we work together, said Akimi when she sat down at Kyle's table. Kyle couldn't take his eyes off Sierra Russell. She had drifted up about 25 feet and was leaning against the railings of her floating platform, completely lost in a new book. Hello? Earth to Kyle. Do you want somebody else to get first dibs on the Electronic Learning Center? No. Then focus. Okay, so how do we use our wits and the library to find dessert? Akimi nodded toward Miguel, whose fingers were dancing across the screen of his desktop tablet computer. I think he's doing a search in the card catalog, whispered Akimi. Why? It's how you find stuff in the library, Kyle. I know that, but we're not looking for books about dessert. We need to find actual food. Andrew Peckelman stood up from his desk and sprinted up a wrought iron spiral staircase leading to the second floor. 2 seconds later, Charles Chiltington was sprinting up the staircase behind him. All the other players soon followed. Everybody was headed to the second floor and the Dewey Decimal Rooms. Miguel finally popped up from his desk, made a mad dash to the nearest staircase. It's got to be up in the 600, you guys, he called out to Kyle and Akimi. Thanks, said Kyle, but he still didn't budge from his seat. I guess the 600's in the decimal Dewey category where you find books about desserts, said Akimi. Maybe we should. Wait a second, said Kyle. Kyle, in case you haven't noticed, you, me, and the glider girl Sierra are the only ones still on this floor. And Sierra isn't really on the floor because she's floating. Hang on, Akimi, I have an idea. Kyle pulled out his floor plan. Dessert is probably hiding in plain sight, just like the bonus codes in Squirrel Squad. Follow me. Where to? The Book Nook Cafe, the one room in the library where, according to Dr. Zinchenko, told us back at the hotel, food and drinks are actually allowed. They strolled into the cozy cafe. Woo-hoo, shouted Akimi. The walls were decorated with shelves of cookbooks, but several tables were loaded down with trays of cookies, cakes, ice cream, and fruit. That's why the curtains were closed behind the windows into the rotunda, said Akimi, so we couldn't see all this food. Way to go, Kyle. Kyle did his best imitation of Charles Chiltington. I'm a Keeley, Akimi. We never lose, except, of course, when we don't win. After everyone had dessert, Kyle and Akimi were the first ones allowed to enter the Electronic Learning Center. Kyle flew the space shuttle, making an excellent landing on Mars before crashing into one of Saturn's moons. Akimi rode a horse with Paul Revere. Then Kyle learned how to drive a stick-shift stock car on the Talladega racetrack, while Akimi climbed into a tiny submarine to swim with sharks, dolphins, and sea turtles, all of which were projected on the glass walls in her undersea simulator. All the educational video games had 3D visuals, digital surround sound, and something new that Mr. Lemoncello was developing for his video games: smell-o-vision. When you sacked Rome with Visigoths, you got to smell the smoky scent of the burning city as well as the barbarians' B.O. After an hour, Dr. Sinchenko ushered everybody else into the Electronic Learning Center. They've been watching George Washington debate George W. Bush. Both were audio animatronic dummies in the town square at the center of the 900th room. At 10 p.m., they all tromped into the IMAX theater, also on the 3rd floor, to see Jukebox Concert, 3D image of the world's best musicians, living and dead, perform their hits live. The best part was Mozart jamming with Metallica. Finally, around 3 in the morning, Clarence and his twin brother Clement came to escort the kids to their sleeping quarters. The boys would roll out their sleeping bags in the children's room, just off the rotunda. The girls would be upstairs on the 3rd floor in the boardroom. Charles Chiltington would be luxuriating all alone in Mr. Lemoncello's private suite, exhausted from the excitement of the day and crashing after eating way too much sugar. Kyle slept like a baby. He only woke up because he heard music, loud, blaring music. The theme song from the boxing movie Rocky, his brother Mike's favorite. "What's that?" he mumbled, crawling out of his sleeping bag. Kyle glanced at his watch. It was 11 a.m. He figured the library lock-in was officially over, and this was the group's wake-up call. The music kept blaring. "This is how they wake up astronauts," groaned Miguel. "Turn it off, Andrew Peckelman." Kyle slipped his jeans and sneakers and staggered out into the giant reading room. "Dr. Zinchenko," his voice echoed off the dome. No answer. "Clarence? Clement?" Nothing. The Rocky music got louder. Akimi leaned in from the 3rd floor balcony. "What's going on down there?" "I think they're trying to wake up astronauts," said Kyle. "On the moon." He made his way to the front door and reached for the handle. It wouldn't budge. He jiggled it. Nothing. He jiggled harder. Still nothing. Kyle realized that the library lock-in might be over, but they were still locked in the library.